Somewhere along the way, you learned a skill that felt like a virtue. You learned how to make yourself easier to be around. Quieter, softer, less. You learned to read the room before you spoke, to measure your excitement so it didn't make others uncomfortable, to shrink your ambition down to a size that fit the ceiling of whoever you were standing next to. And you were so good at it, so practiced, so seamless, that everyone around you called it maturity. They called it humility. They called it grace. But I need you to hear what it actually was. It was self-erasure dressed up in polite language. And it has been costing you, quietly, consistently, without a single invoice, every single day. This didn't start with weakness. It never does. It started with intelligence. You were perceptive enough, early enough, to understand that people have thresholds, that too much ambition makes certain people defensive, that too much certainty makes certain people hostile, that too much presence, too much raw, unfiltered you triggers something uncomfortable in people who are still negotiating with their own unlived potential. So you adjusted. Not because you were afraid, exactly, but because you were strategic. You understood the social math. If I make myself smaller, the friction disappears. If I dim this down, the room stays comfortable. And the piece felt worth it for a while. But here's what the strategic version of you didn't calculate. Every time you dimmed yourself for a room, the room didn't grow. You shrank. Every time you swallowed the ambition to preserve someone's comfort, the ambition didn't disappear. It turned inward. And ambition turned inward doesn't stay quiet. It becomes restlessness, becomes resentment, becomes this persistent low-grade hunger that follows you into every room you walk into and whispers, "This isn't it. This isn't all you are. Why are you still performing this version of yourself?" That whisper, that's not anxiety. That's your real life, knocking. Kindness is giving from abundance. Accommodation is giving from fear. Kindness says, "I want to show up for you." Accommodation says, "I'm terrified of what happens if I don't." Kindness expands you. Accommodation hollows you. Most people mistake one for the other. But here is the diagnostic. After you give, do you feel full or empty? After you show up, do you feel seen or used? After you soften yourself for someone, do they rise to meet you, or do they simply come to expect the softness? If you answer that honestly, you already know. The kindness became a cage the moment you started using it to manage other people's reactions to your power. There is a version of wanting more that feels almost violent in its clarity. Not greedy, not desperate. Something colder, quieter, more certain. It's the feeling of standing in the middle of your current life and knowing with absolute precision that it is not the life you are capable of. That is dangerous ambition. And it is dangerous not because it will hurt you, but because it will absolutely dismantle every comfortable, convenient, carefully managed compromise you have made with your own potential. It will look at the life you settled into, and it will say, "We both know this isn't real." Some of the people in your life needed you manageable. Your uncertainty made them feel more certain. Your softness made them feel less exposed. Your willingness to shrink created a dynamic where they didn't have to grow, because you were always there to absorb the space. But you cannot pour yourself into the shape of someone else's comfort indefinitely and still remain yourself. At some point, the container cracks. At some point, the accommodation becomes absence. You disappear, incrementally, quietly, politely, until one day you catch yourself in a mirror and realize the person looking back has been carefully curated for everyone else's ease. That's not love. That's dissolution.
And you deserve more than a life spent dissolving. There comes a moment, quiet, almost unremarkable, where you realize the shift has already happened. Not the shift you planned for, not the dramatic awakening of motivational content or breakthrough moments. Just a Tuesday afternoon where someone says something they've said 100 times before, and it doesn't land the same way. The manipulation that used to work doesn't move you. The approval you used to chase doesn't taste like anything anymore. The version of yourself you used to perform feels like wearing someone else's clothes. And you realize, standing in that ordinary moment, that you already changed. Somewhere between the silence and the hunger and the long, private reckoning with who you actually are, the old operating system stopped running. And something new, something you don't fully have language for yet, has been running in its place. Quieter, more deliberate, allergic to performance, absolutely intolerant of anything that asks you to be less than what you actually are. That's not a breakdown. That's not a crisis. That is the eerie, irreversible arrival of the person you were always becoming, while everyone else was waiting for you to stay the same. So here is where I leave you. Not with instructions, not with a 5-step plan, with a single question that I want to follow you out of this video and into every room you walk into today. What would you do? Who would you become if you stopped managing other people's reactions to your power? Not who would you perform as, not what would look good. Who would you actually be if the kindness was genuine instead of strategic? If the ambition was expressed instead of buried? If you walked into every room as the unedited, undimmed, unapologetic full version of yourself, and let the room adjust to you for once? You have spent long enough being easy. Easy to manage, easy to overlook, easy to underestimate. The world doesn't remember easy. The world remembers the ones who walked in like they already knew what they were worth, and refused, quietly, completely, and without explanation, to be convinced otherwise. You were never too much. They were just too comfortable with less. Now stop accommodating the comfort of people who were never going to match your level anyway. And go become the thing that cannot be ignored.